Dark chosen ones, if your shadow energy is too high, this will start happening. There's a moment in the life of every dark chosen one when the veil starts thinning, not just between worlds, but between who you thought you were and what you're actually becoming. It doesn't come with a warning, it comes with symptoms, strange ones, intense ones, often terrifying, often misunderstood. This isn't a gimmick, this is a transmission. If your shadow energy is too high, things begin to happen. Things that no one talks about because most people are too afraid to admit that power doesn't only come from the light. It also surges from the dark. And when that dark energy reaches a certain threshold in your body, in your field, in your soul's contract, reality begins to bend. But it doesn't bend gently. It snaps, twists and folds until you either awaken to your true nature or collapse under the weight of your own unintegrated force. Let's be clear, you are not cursed, you are coded. But those codes don't activate in comfort, they activate in pressure, in chaos, in the moments when you feel like you're losing control of your mind, your body, your perception. That's not madness, that's mutation. You are being reconfigured from the inside out. And if you're still trying to explain this to people who live in the shallow end of spirituality, they'll call it a breakdown. But it's not a breakdown, it's a quantum ignition, and the signs are unmistakable once you know how to see them.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
First, your energy becomes volatile. Not dangerous, but undeniable. You start to notice that people react to you differently. Some are drawn to you like moths to a flame, unable to stop watching you, listening to you, feeding off your field. Others avoid you completely, as if your very presence exposes something in them they're not ready to face. You're not doing anything differently on the surface, but underneath your frequency is becoming too sharp, too charged for the average nervous system to handle. This is one of the first and clearest signs that your shadow energy is exceeding the threshold of normal human resonance. You're not broken. You are ascending sideways through the underworld, not the clouds. Then the physical symptoms come. You feel wired and exhausted at the same time. You can't sleep for days, then crash for 18 hours. Your appetite changes in bizarre ways, either ravenous or completely gone. You get chills in the middle of summer. Your skin vibrates. Your heart races without cause. You start hearing tones that no one else hears, feeling pressure behind your eyes, in your forehead, in your chest. These are not medical emergencies, they are energetic downloads. Your system is trying to hold a current it was never trained to receive. This is why ordinary healing won't help you. You're not healing, you're activating. And that requires a different kind of support, one rooted in frequency, not formulas. Then the dreams come, dreams that are not dreams, portals, visitations. You wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, remembering symbols, languages, places you've never seen in this life. You dream of ancient temples, dark oceans, eyes watching you from the trees. You dream of versions of yourself you've never met but feel like home. You're not going crazy, you're being contacted by your own soul, by your guides, by the archetypes that live inside your shadow. This is what happens when your energy becomes too dense to be contained by the ego. The unconscious starts leaking through, and if you don't know what's happening, it can feel like a haunting, But it's not something chasing you, it's something awakening in you. You also begin to notice that technology starts glitching around you. Phones freeze, lights flicker, electronics short out when you're angry, or even when you're just present. This isn't coincidence. Your field is becoming electromagnetically disruptive. Your body is literally conducting more voltage than before, and the artificial structures around you can't keep up. That's why you start craving nature, silence, isolation. It's not just a preference, it's a necessity. The earth can hold what your environment cannot. You're not withdrawing, you're recalibrating. Relationships shift, often violently. People you thought would be in your life forever suddenly ghost you, or turn on you, or reveal that they never really saw you at all. This is not loss, this is exposure. Your rising shadow energy is like a spotlight on every false bond you've tolerated. And rather than let you drag dead weight into your next evolution, the universe starts cutting the cords for you. It hurts. But it also frees you, because what's coming next requires a level of sovereignty you've never had to embody before. You won't be able to hide in attachments anymore. You'll have to stand alone, but not in loneliness, in clarity. And then the most important sign, the silence. It comes suddenly, after all the chaos, the symptoms, the psychic noise. There's a drop, a stillness. And in that silence, something speaks. Not in words, in knowing. Your body starts to become the oracle. You walk into a room and just know what's happening. You can feel people's intentions before they speak. You sense timelines collapsing and rebirthing in real time. You are no longer thinking, you are transmitting. This is the moment your shadow energy reaches critical mass. And when that happens, you don't need a teacher. You are the teacher. You don't need a path. You are the path. So I ask you, are you experiencing these things? If so, it's not random. It's not hormonal, it's not burnout, it's initiation. Your shadow is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to deliver you to the version of yourself that was encoded in darkness from the beginning. And if your shadow energy is too high, this will start happening, not to punish you, but to prepare you in the shadow threshold. How to survive the collapse of the old self and step into unfiltered power. When your shadow energy starts exceeding the limits of your old identity, something inevitable begins to happen. The collapse. And I want you to hear this with your whole being. The collapse is not a mistake. It's not failure. It's not the universe abandoning you. It's initiation. It's you reaching what I call the shadow threshold, the point of no return where everything that you used to use to define yourself starts falling away, not because it's bad, but because it's too small to hold who you're becoming. And this collapse doesn't come gently. It tears through your life like a sacred wildfire. It burns illusions, breaks contracts, shatters comfort, and leaves you standing in the ashes of your former self, wondering if you've lost everything. But the truth is, you didn't lose anything. You just shed everything that wasn't real. At the shadow threshold, your nervous system is under spiritual siege. You feel exposed, ungrounded. You look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself. You can't go back to who you were, but you also don't know who you're becoming. This is the liminal space between the death of identity and the birth of essence. And it's terrifying because you're no longer in control. The ego is no longer holding the steering wheel. The shadow has taken over, not to wreck the vehicle, but to recalibrate it. And in this space, your job is not to fix, solve, or escape. Your job is to surrender, to stop resisting what's leaving, to stop clinging to what's crumbling, because the more you resist, the more it hurts. But the moment you let go, even for a breath, you begin to feel something else. Power, not the kind of power the world taught you to chase, not status or validation or control, but a deep, primal, magnetic presence that begins to rise from your core like a storm. This power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It simply is, and once you feel it even once, you can never go back to pretending you're powerless. That's why the collapse is so violent, because it's not just about shedding the old, it's about confronting the part of you that chose to be small for so long. It's about facing the ways you participated in your own suppression. It's about owning the truth that you were never broken, you were buried, and now your soul is digging itself out. One triggered memory, one burned bridge, one ego death at a time. So how do you survive this? You stop trying to survive it. You initiate yourself through it. You become the sacred witness to your own unraveling. You say, yes, I see you, to the grief, the rage, the confusion. You let it move through your body without needing to label it or justify it. You sit with your darkness without trying to spiritualize it or turn it into a lesson. Because here's the truth. Your shadow doesn't need to be healed. It needs to be heard. And when you give it that space, when you allow your raw, unfiltered truth to rise without censorship, something miraculous happens. You begin to remember, not facts, not teachings, but yourself, the real you, the one beneath the masks and the trauma and the conditioning, the you who never flinched in the face of darkness, the you who came to this planet not to fit in, but to disrupt. And in that remembrance, your frequency begins to shift. You start to feel grounded in the chaos. You start to move with clarity, even when everything around you is uncertain. You stop needing answers, because you are the presence that holds the unknown. This is what it means to step into unfiltered power. Not because you've figured it all out, but because you've stopped needing to. And here's where the real mastery begins. You learn to hold your shadow energy without leaking it. You learn to walk into rooms and let your presence speak without needing to perform. You stop reacting and start responding, not from your wounds, but from your knowing. People will feel it. They may not understand it, but they'll feel it. Some will bow to it, others will run from it, but none will be indifferent. Because when your shadow power is integrated, it creates a field around you that can't be ignored. You become the mirror, the oracle, the disruptor, the healer, all without saying a word. So I ask you now, what part of you are you still trying to save from the fire? What identity are you still protecting even though it's suffocating you? Because until you're willing to let it all fall, your true power can't rise. And I know that's terrifying. I know it feels like death. But what if it's not death? What if it's birth? What if every breakdown is actually a sacred contraction, preparing you to deliver the version of yourself the world has never seen? Can you sit with that possibility? Can you hold the grief and the glory at the same time? Because that's what the shadow threshold demands. Not perfection, not certainty, presence. The ability to be with what is, even when it hurts. The courage to walk into the unknown without needing a guarantee. The willingness to let go of everything that's dying so that what wants to live through you can finally breathe. This is what it means to rise as a dark chosen one. Not to escape the shadow, but to become the one who can hold it without being consumed. Becoming the eye of the storm, why your chaos is a portal to collective power. Once you've crossed the shadow threshold, once you've felt the collapse and chosen not to run, something begins to shift, not just inside you, but around you. The external world starts responding to your internal state. Reality becomes pliable, responsive, animated by your awareness. And right here in this crucible is where most people either rise into embodiment or retreat into illusion. Because the next phase isn't about surviving the storm, it's about becoming the calm within it. You don't escape the chaos, you become the eye of it, still, deep, unshakable. While everything else spins, you remain rooted in the truth that nothing outside you has power over what lives within you. And that's when your chaos stops being personal, it becomes a portal. A doorway not just to your own liberation, but to collective transformation. You start to realize that everything you've been feeling, every emotion, every fear, every breakdown was never just yours. It was ancestral, archetypal, collective. You were never just healing your own story. You were processing the backlog of a world that's forgotten how to feel. And now that you've survived the storm, you carry a frequency that others can sense, even if they don't understand it. You become a walking permission slip, a living transmitter of coherence, because you've been where they're afraid to go, and you came back with your power intact. This is where your presence starts to shift the grid. Not because you're trying to be a leader, but because you become non-reactive. You're not trying to save anyone. You're not trying to fix the world. You're not even trying to heal people. You just are, fully, unapologetically, and without fragmentation. And that kind of presence is rare. It's magnetic. It disrupts illusions simply by existing. People feel safer around you even if they don't know why. Or they feel threatened even if you said nothing. Because your field is no longer neutral. It's charged with clarity, with truth, with the kind of shadow-integrated power that can't be faked. You begin to notice synchronicity accelerating, not in magical woo-woo ways, but in precise strategic alignments. You think of someone and they call. You speak a desire and the path begins unfolding without force. You walk into situations that used to drain you, and now you're unaffected, even sovereign. Your chaos has become order, not because you controlled it, but because you stopped resisting it. You now carry a groundedness that others crave. Not the kind that lectures or preaches, but the kind that embodies what it is to be fully awake in a world that's still asleep. And this is where the deeper responsibility begins, because now your field is impacting others whether you want it to or not. You can no longer afford to be unconscious with your words, your choices, your energy. You've become a tuning fork for truth. And that means your life is no longer just about you. But this isn't a burden, it's a gift. You are now in service to something far greater than your personal comfort. You're a node in the collective nervous system, stabilizing trauma, transmitting coherence, holding space for others to collapse and rise, just as you did. But here's the paradox. The more power you embody, the less you need to prove it. The more truth you carry, the less you need to speak it. You no longer chase visibility. You no longer crave recognition. You're not here to be a brand, you're here to be a field. And that field is what shifts the world, not through effort, but through resonance. You don't need to push. You don't even need to lead in the traditional sense. You just need to remain rooted in your own coherence. That's what creates the ripple. That's what destabilizes systems built on fear. That's what inspires people to remember the parts of themselves they've exiled. So I ask you, can you hold your center even when the world spins faster? Can you remain still without becoming passive? Can you trust your energy more than your strategy? Because this is what it means to become the eye of the storm. You're no longer reacting, you're responding from wholeness. And that wholeness is the medicine the world doesn't even know it needs yet. You are no longer just a human navigating chaos, you are the calm that reshapes it. The final initiation, why Shadow Masters are the architects of a new consciousness. There is a final moment in the path of the Dark Chosen One that no one talks about. Not because it's hidden, but because most never reach it. They stop at the transformation. They stop at the power. They stop at the silence. But there's something beyond that. Something deeper than healing, beyond embodiment, more potent than any external display of mastery. It is the final initiation. The moment you realize that you are no longer becoming anything, you have become. And from this place, you don't just live as a healed version of a former self, you begin to architect reality. This is where the real work begins. Not the work of fixing what is broken, but the work of birthing what has never existed before. You see, the ones who have walked through their own shadow without flinching, who've held their chaos, survived their collapse, and emerged coherent, they are the ones now holding the codes for new timelines. Not because they memorized teachings, but because they embodied truths that were forged in fire. And that embodiment becomes a frequency. That frequency becomes a blueprint, and that blueprint begins to restructure consciousness itself. Quietly, powerfully, irreversibly. You're not just here to express your shadow, you're here to lead through it. Not with dominance, but with gravity, with weight, with the kind of presence that bends reality without force because it's too rooted to be swayed. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. The field around you does the work. You walk into a room and things shift, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. This is the final initiation, not the ascension away from the dark, but the descent so deep into it that you find the light that was hidden inside all along. You start to see how the world is still addicted to polarity, light versus dark, good versus evil, love versus fear. But you've gone beyond that. You've seen that true power isn't found in choosing sides, it's found in holding both, in becoming a bridge between the opposites, in being able to hold paradox without needing resolution. That's what makes you dangerous to the old systems. That's what makes you sacred to the new ones. You are no longer bound by the rules of linear evolution. You are moving in spirals now, in quantum waves, in frequencies that don't fit into the old templates. And because of that, you become a disruptor, a frequency hacker, a consciousness architect. You're no longer here to fit in, you're here to fracture illusions, to shake the foundations of systems that were never built to hold truth, to activate others, not by giving them answers, but by being the presence that makes them ask better questions. This is the role of the Shadow Master, not to be followed, but to create spaces where everyone remembers they were never lost. And yes, you'll be misunderstood. You'll be labeled intense, too much, too deep, too real. But that's not your problem, that's your power. You are not here to be liked, you are here to be lightning, to strike truth into the hearts of those who are ready, to burn away the false so that the real can rise. This is what happens when your shadow energy is no longer just high, it's integrated, it's lived, it's wielded with wisdom. So I ask you now for the last time, can you accept that you were never meant to walk the easy path? Can you own that your chaos, your pain, your depth were not obstacles, but invitations? That your shadow wasn't the thing holding you back, but the very force pushing you forward? Can you see now that everything you've experienced was preparing you for this moment, not to survive the world, but to reshape it? Because if you can, then you've crossed the final threshold. You are no longer awakening, you are awake. You are not just a participant in the shift, you are a pillar of it. You carry the codes, you hold the field. You are the storm, the calm, the mirror, and the map. You are the dark chosen one, and the world is about to remember who you are.